Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast. This is episode 89, Pleasure Island Part 4, where we'll be taking you back to more Pleasure Island excitement and New Year's Eve every night. I'm your host, Todd McCartney, and sitting in with me, as always, is Mr. Hal Bowers, who will be leading tonight's episode. So yes, Hal's surprised I went with him first. I'm just shaking things up. How are you doing tonight, Hal?
Aloha, I'm doing fine. Yeah, I'm used to going third or fourth. This is big news for me.
What do I say? Well, you know, you wrote the episode, so we got to give it a hand.
Yeah, I'm still writing the episode.
It's the episode that writes itself.
It does. So again, this is Pleasure Island, so of course there's a lot of detail and many thany things. So we'll see how far we can get tonight before we bore everybody. So we may have to pass. There will undoubtedly be a part 5, but I'm excited to get this through here, so this is going to be good.
All of our listeners thought there would be 5 parts to Horizons. No, there'll be 5 parts to Pleasure Island. So
there's a lot.
Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
And getting ready to down a 21 rum salute is Mr. JT Kuzier. How are you doing tonight, JT?
Good. I love a good theme restaurant. I loved Pleasure Island. So part 4. And I look back, part 3 was 2021. So
we've had a bit of a gap. We had some things to do in the last 3 years.
Yeah,
so.
I listened in and I caught myself up. That's the one where listener mail we had the magician named Michael Jason, if you recall.
Right.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, so and we had a good Tom Cruise story on that one. So go back to part 3 if you're feeling out of touch.
Wow, look at that. And we heard a little chuckle, a little laugh, a snicker coming in from Brian P. Miles. How are you doing tonight, Brian?
It may have even been a chortle.
A chortle. You know, those are all candies, too. Snickers.
Really?
Chuckles, chortles. There's another one, too, that are based on laughter.
I'll give you a kudos for your efforts there, Tom.
Kudos. There you go.
Abracadabra.
Well, greetings and salutations we get an extra day of February tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we're recording this on the 28th of February. So I don't know when you'll all be hearing it, but I'm very excited for Leap Day tomorrow because it'll mark 12 years since Disney did their One More Disney Day. 24 hours, the Magic Kingdom was open for Leap Day in 2012. And I went down for it. I planned my vacation around being there for the 24-hour day at the Magic Kingdom. And in 13 more years, when we can do an episode on that, because it'll be 25 years in the past, I can tell you all about it. But I did not, as some tried to do the entire 24 hours.
That's a long time.
I did arrive in the 6 o'clock hour, although not at rope drop. And it was very foggy. So foggy, in fact, you could not see the castle at the end of Main Street from Town Square. Yeah, it was. You were like, it's there, but I can't see it. And then as you would walk up Main Street, it came into view. And I remember, I'll give you the beginning and the end. I was leaving the park somewhere around 4:45, 5 a.m. I had had enough, and I was not there nonstop. By the way, I had left at some point, took a little nap, had some dinner. And we went back later in the evening and spent, the wee small hours of the morning there. But somewhere around 4:45, 5 o'clock, something like that, I said, all right, I'm going to get out of here and get back to my room I think I was at French Quarter for that trip. And there was a 75-minute wait to meet Mickey in Town Square at 4:45 in the morning. And I said, it's time to go. Let's get out of here. So what happened was it got very crowded because all the Floridians who got off work, all the locals who got off work, came in, dinner time. Like they got off their shifts at work, went home, maybe had dinner, whatever. Then they all started showing up at the park at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night and stayed for the night. And so it got like there was like a second wave of crowded. It was really, really something. And I would like them to do it. They did it a couple other years after that. They were doing them over Memorial Day weekend. They would do a 24-hour day, the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, like leading into Memorial Day. And they were fun. And then the fun ended. So,
well, we've got fun tonight. We got the Funmeister to talk about as always. So
the Funmeister will save all.
That's right.
That's all I'm going to say.
Good man. Good moon. Good fun man. Moon thing.
Moon Man.
Moon Man. There we go. All right. Well, JT, I'll pass the baton over to you. And quickly, since we did talk a little bit about candy, can we get a candy update from your daughter?
Yeah, we did.
The bars that we've been.
Abba Zaba.
Yeah.
That was not well received. That was a 2 out of 10 rating.
Okay.
I heartily agree.
Yeah, and I'd never had it, so I, cut that with a pair of scissors that nearly broke because we were dividing it, amongst the children, so Andrew doesn't get upset. We also did the Cadbury Twirl.
Oh,
sent that one.
The set we sent, yeah.
6 out of 10 on that.
Oh, that's good. That's a solid.
That's one of my favorite dances too, by the way.
Okay. And the Cadbury Crunchy, that did not go well. That was a 4 out of 10.
Oh.
So if I recall correctly, the Crunchy, just for reference point, because I know weird things like this, is the #1 candy bar in Ireland.
Is it really?
So I don't know if you have any Irish heritage there in your background, but
no. She just said it tastes like dirt, and I think that was based on the way the filling looked.
Yeah.
We
get that.
We do have sitting here, though, I found a Kit Kat lemon. It was an Easter special. So
I tried a Kit Kat chocolate frosted donut flavor. That was in the airport vending machine when my plane landed. I was in Disney for a week last week, right? Yeah, I got home a week ago, and while I was waiting an interminably long time for my bags, I'm like, boy, they didn't feed me on the plane. I'm kind of hungry because it was like 9:30 at night, and so out came the iced tea and the chocolate donut Kit Kat from the vending machine there at baggage claim, and it didn't taste like a chocolate donut.
Yeah, it's our candy bar adventure continues. So I don't have a number here, but we've got a solid 2 pages of ratings. So,
all right. Has she tried a Laffy Taffy yet? Now that you brought up Abba Zaba, I'm curious if.
I don't think we have. She might have, but we didn't rate it. We're usually sticking with the chocolate.
All right. Yeah, I get that
because it's that sort of thing. She did try I don't know how you pronounce it, but a Chico stick or a Chico stick.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
Chico. Yep, Chico
fun.
stick. Yep.
She gave that a 6 out of 10. So
those are peanut butter,
coconut, and it's that
Yeah.
So what is in the lead then? What just out of curiosity?
I was just looking. So we have Tim Tam Fingers. That's from Australia. We got that.
Yeah, top notch.
And then a Reese's Big Cup with potato chips. We had that in Canada. That got an 8 out of 10.
#1, man. They are fantastic.
And one of the more local ones, Hershey's Cookies and Cream. That's a favorite.
Look at that. Yeah. Well, on my new travels, I will see what I can find for her.
Thank you.
Yeah, Todd's got some international travel plans, so
Yep.
God knows. Whatever he brings back will have hazelnut in it, though, because Europeans, man, they everywhere Americans would put peanuts, Europeans put hazelnuts in everything. So.
Exactly.
Todd, I'm going to give you a question before we start and a plug to your Twitter. What are you building? I know you built big Lego men, but why are you building Are you building the plane that's taking you to Europe? That's what it looks like.
You're correct. I did build the Lego man. Actually, he's sitting right here next to me. I am building it's somebody else designed it, but as a model of a Trent, Rolls-Royce Trent engine from a Airbus A380. So it's probably about a foot long, about 10, 11 inches wide. And you can open it up and see all the spinning turbine blades.
It's the first step to building the plane.
Yeah, I got to get the engine working first. So non-functional. I'll have a little motor in it so it turns. But that's so yeah. If you're interested in home builds of weird things and model building at WDWMS. So
he's got the Flight of the Phoenix going on over there.
Here's the Lego man.
Here's the Lego man.
I did dig that. That's fun.
I mean, he came out really cool.
Don't forget to print my imagination ride vehicle.
We're digging out the file for that.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's get into listener mail. As always, they're coming in faster than I can keep up. So thanks for your patience.
Yeah, it's been a busy month.
It has. Yeah.
Lots of requests, lots of questions, lots of film stuff. If you're somebody that's written us and you've said, "Hey, I have a film, I have some slides," we'll get to you. We slowly get through those. We get you the address, and then it goes from there. It's a whole process, but we definitely will get to you. But first off, I have a message here from Jared. He says, "Good morning from Central Florida." He's a big Fort Wilderness fan. He's enjoyed listening to the podcast from the beginning. So you're in it up to 89 here, Jared. He has a question recently by his brother, and he's been staying at Fort Wilderness every couple of months since we have the pleasure of it being so close. He says basically the other day his brother came upon a raccoon skin cap on eBay, and I will drop this picture in the show notes. They've been intrigued and like to know what we know about this item. It says it was a award or memorial. It says the coonskin 1992 is awarded to those individuals who've made a significant contribution to the Fort Wilderness legacy. The 6th coonskin goes to George Overall, who himself has become a part of the Fort Wilderness spirit and tradition. Congratulations, George. Jared, I've seen these on eBay as well, or a picture of one. I'm going to guess, maybe we might get some feedback, but I'm going to guess it's a cast member to cast member award within the resort, that sort of stuff. They all sort of have their own sort of, brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, and especially if you're a regular or a long-time cast member there. But that's what that looks like to me. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but
I did see it, and I agree with you that it is, okay. I'm sure, some kind of an internal award or recognition.
And Jared, I love your Fort Wilderness Railroad pictures. There's always some remnants still out and about there. A few years back, Micah and I, if you look at his YouTube channel, which he's been showing all sorts of stuff from us recently. He's been doing lots of current versus then and now type photo, video type things, putting screen grabs from our videos versus what he sees now. But we did a Fort Wilderness Railroad one, so if you check that out, that's a pretty good look at how things once were.
Yeah, World of Micah is a wonderful YouTube channel.
Yeah. All right, next up, we're going to cut to the audio on this one. This is a voicemail from Laney, I believe. I could not pre-listen to this to get the name correct, but Laney called us about the Speedway, the racetrack noise again, and that's personal experience with that.
Laney is our friend from New England there that asked for the recipe for the I believe it was lime chiffon pie at the Polynesian, and we provided it, and she made it and sent us photos of it, and we all started thinking about hopping in our cars to go drive and get a slice because it looked so good.
That's right.
Hi guys, this is Lainey Ty from Ipswich. Just listening to your technically it's the Back to the Future episode, but the mailbag was about the racetrack noise and all that. And I was laughing because every year we had 3 rooms in the concierge building at the Polynesian, and I have to give my father credit that it was definitely, we did not book it because of this, but that was our time to go. And every time that we went, my father would walk down to the front desk, and 3 rooms for the entire week were comped to us. So that brought a smile to my face and confirmed that, we were not the only ones to have benefited from that. But it was, I can also say, very, very annoying. And you did hear that like it was, right outside your door. So anyway, keep doing what you're doing. Love you guys and have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.
So after that, it did confirm like what that story I did here, getting the room comped and that benefit of staying at the Polynesian on a race day or race weekend.
I hope that they made a lot of money on these races, because they sure lost a lot of money on the hotel rooms.
It's fascinating to say the least. That's it.
How in like premium economy and business they hand earplugs out. That would have been what they give you. Like, here's earplugs, earmuffs.
I do wonder today what the reaction would be.
Oh, it would be
versus the customer service back then, and it reminds me of the episode of The Office where Jim and Pam's wedding is up in Niagara Falls, and Kevin leaves his shoes to get polished, and they throw them out because they smell so bad. And he's like, "But I have no shoes." And she's like, "I can offer you a complimentary breakfast." Okay.
I mean, it's very, I just can't imagine. And then you had to wonder too, like, did the word get out throughout the resort, like at the pool, like, hey, if you go complain, they'll give you your room for free. And then it just started to snowball.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fascinating time in the history over there for sure. And also, we'll put a link to Reese strung together the VHS or Hyatt or one of those, the video of her family's experience there. So we'll link that in the show notes as well. So even more Speedway. So thank you for that voicemail. And thank you, Reese, on that one. All right, next is Sylvia. Sylvia says, hello, Retro WDW crew. My parents have been going through things and recently gave me glass bird drink stirrers from the Polynesian. She's sent us some photos. I actually have a memory of when my parents got these drinks in 1993 during a dinner at the Polynesian restaurant. My question is, would you know which restaurant it would be? I remember the restaurant having lots of windows. I know it's a while away yet, but I'm starting to plan for my 2025 Walt Disney World trip, and especially the 10-year anniversary of Retro Magic, which will be my first one in attendance. I was wondering if you had any dates yet. It's a shot in the dark, but I was wondering if you had any extra ornaments. You've got a lot of questions here. So first off, let's go. How did you see these drink stirrers?
Yes, I'm very familiar with those, and I think I have a couple in my collection as well.
Right next to the foot-long hot dog guy.
Yeah, it was going right for
No, they're inside the foot-long. He's protecting it.
It's packing.
So that would have been from the Pepite Bay veranda before it was converted into Ohana at that time period. So yeah, so you very likely may have gotten those. If you weren't in the restaurant, you might have gotten them at the Tambu Lounge right outside there. And those things are all over eBay. They must have given out. I cannot believe how many of those things they gave. I mean, being glass, I don't know what the price per unit on those, but I mean, today that would be very costly. So yeah, that's great.
They almost look Arriba's brothers, don't they?
Right. Yeah. Before that restaurant became the Old Country Hawaiian Buffet, it was it was the fine dining establishment.
That's true. That's very true.
It was the high end restaurant. Mm-hmm. So it was where they, put on the Ritz.
Right.
All right.
Super true. And I will take this opportunity to say, if you want more Polynesian resort history, stuff like that, I will be appearing at the Tiki A Go-Go event in April in Orlando, where I'm going to have 2 seminars on the Polynesian resort, one on the development and construction of that and the history behind that, and another one on the food and beverage there. So if you love that Polynesian stuff, come on down to Orlando and spend a Tiki weekend and learn all kinds of good stuff.
Brian, would you like to speak to, first off, how that sounds very exciting. I will try to get down there for that. Brian, would you like to give any Retro Magic updates? Any thoughts?
Sure. We can tell you what we're trying to do is have it over what will be President's Weekend about 1 year from now, because the way it falls in February of 2025 is Friday is Valentine's Day, February 14th. And Monday is the President's Day holiday, which would be this 18th, right? Yes, 18th. Yep. And so in discussions, that's a weekend that we think will be optimal for a lot of people, because a lot of people do get off for the President's Day holiday and students and things like that. It might be a little easier for some Floridians to make their way to the resort for the weekend or make a long weekend out of it. So we're still working with Disney on locking down the location. So as soon as we have that in place, we will let you know. But for those of you who are DVC fiends and want to try and get your 11-month window, that's the weekend to target. No guarantees, though. Always subject to change.
Sure. And then, Todd, since you're here, any ornaments you have available? Are we out?
We are. Well, we have a few of the... Crap, what was the one we just did?
the butler head.
Oh, yes. We have a few of the Horizons butler head left. I think maybe 9 or 10, something like that. But those are there. Other than that, I know we'll have to be working on a new one very soon. So.
Oh my gosh, that's right. All right, Sylvia. Well, thanks. I appreciate all those questions. That was a good email there for sure.
And we should say that if you are interested in those, retrowdw.com/support us. So there's a few left.
Yeah, and we'll link that too. So you don't
and
even
puffy
have to...
stickers.
Oh,
and
watches. We got all sorts of good stuff.
You could make an ornament out of a watch, just saying, and there you go. You hang that right on your tree.
Yep.
You know how
and you'll know what time it is if you're looking at your tree.
Remember those were big in the 90s or 80s? Those big, you put a big watch on your wall, and that was the clock. Like it had this. It was like a round clock, and it had the straps. That should be our next giveaway.
Did Swatch make those kind of in the style of the Disney?
Feel like they were Swatch styled, even if they weren't made by Swatch. But I also feel like Disney made one with a giant Mickey watch that you can hang on your wall. I feel like that was a 90s merch.
Yeah, I think that might have been one of the first ones, because I think that was actually on the Andre's room's wall in Toy Story as well. That was a familiar piece of merchandise that was out there for a while.
Look at that. All right, a couple more. I got a quick one here from Adam Gerber. He's writing and says he was listening to episode 88 and how we mentioned the Nightmare Before Christmas props that were at Hollywood Studios. He was there in February of 2000 during that display, and he sent us some pictures of those. So we will throw those on the site. Adam.
Very neat pictures, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love that. I have 2 rolls that I'll have to have Todd scan. I remember when I took him to get him processed at Eckerd's, I went to pick him up, and the guy working there pulled me aside and he said, by any chance, would you be mad if could I make a separate copy of these for myself? And I was like, oh, absolutely. Go ahead. I'll wait if you need a half hour or whatever. He's like, well, I already made them. If you would have said no, I would have destroyed him. But I went in and made an extra copy anyways when I was printing them. Because those
are the ones I bought on eBay.
It was just so cool.
I was going to say, was that Adam Gerber? Is those the photos he sent us?
I guess we'll have to look and see.
Compare here.
That'd be a heck of a coincidence.
I know. All right, another quick one here. Oh, go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
I was just going to say, since you mentioned episode 88, thank you, everybody, so far. It's only been out a few days, but we've gotten some great feedback there on that Back to the Future episode, so thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, this message is about that, actually. Paul Zimmerman, he wanted to say regarding the Hill Valley set, it was also used as the city in the series Ghost Whisperer. And the Twilight Zone, how it was the set used in the very first episode, Where Is Everybody?
There we go.
So if you're looking to check out that, which I wanted to actually, I was listening to our episode and I was like, man, I'm not watching every Twilight Zone episode trying to find this. So.
Oh yeah, it was the first one, so it's real easy to find.
Okay.
Just episode 1, season 1, episode 1.
All right, last one. This is from Patrick Daly. He says he enjoyed the Back to the Future episode. He's excited to listen to Pleasure Island. Here we go. I'm segueing here. He has very fond memories of attending Pleasure Island, lots of time at the Comedy Warehouse and the Adventure Clubs, and at the ever-present New Year's Eve celebrations, listening to Buster Poindexter and Hot. But its heyday preceded my turning 21. To those of you, or your listeners of legal drinking age during those days, what was it like? My only ability to ascertain this is from my own hazy memory of watching various retro clips on your website and others. I also suspect the vibes, as kids like to say, now evolved over its time. So, we're gonna get into that, but I don't know. Let's see, you're the same age as me, so I missed it too, Patrick. I went right when I turned 21, and that was right at the cusp of it wrapping up the final 3 or 4 years. But yeah, in the beginning, it was probably popping pretty good, I would guess. Well, Patrick, thanks for that. And if you have any messages or anything you want to tell us, questions, comments, any finds you have that are super awesome, we'll read those messages, try to write back to you as soon as we can, and there's a chance it could end up on a future episode. Write us, podcast at retrowdw.com.
All right, thanks, JT. And as we said at the top of this show, we're going to be getting into our main topic now here on episode 89, which is Pleasure Island Part 4. So, Hal, before you take us back, maybe we should just recap real quick what we did in episodes 1, 2, and 3. We may have to take a quick break here and go look it up since it's been so long. But tell the people why we're at 4 and what to look forward to in this episode.
Sure. So in part 1, we discussed the origins of Pleasure Island and how it took its inspiration from Vancouver's Granville Island, which I believe, oh my gosh, Brian visited not too long ago, right?
Yeah, my name is still Brian, and I did visit there about 9 months ago when I was in Vancouver for a wedding, and visited a couple of times, in fact, because I enjoyed the dining options there. So I took the little ferry boat out there, and enjoyed myself. It's like if you've been to Philadelphia, and I've taken you to Reading Terminal Market, or Boston has Faneuil Hall, and. Mm-hmm. Cleveland's got one too. I forget. I was there. Cleveland Farmers Market or something like that downtown.
Is that where the steamers come in?
It is not.
The West Side Market?
Yes, that's it. I went to the West Side Market, and I don't know if you have any of those food hall type places in Clearwater there, Hal.
No, we really don't have like a large market like the one in Is it Portland? That's the
well. Actually, wait. That one I visited in Tampa last year that they've just built.
Well,
the one on the water there that I went to, right by the like Whole Foods or Fresh Market or whatever it is. There's a
art something.
Yeah, and they have 30 food vendors in there of different restaurants and stuff, and so
I should know the name of that. That's
yes, you should, because we talked. I think we talked about it on the show,
and I've been there. So
it's terrible. There's like 18 people from the Tampa area.
I know, everybody's yelling at me right now,
saying it's called the. But yes, so you do have one down in your region, Armature
Works.
There you go. I can't imagine why we couldn't remember that. That's such a catchy name. But yes, I loved Granville Island. And it even looked nice during the day, which was not the same for Pleasure
Island. We also talked about the elaborate backstory that the Imagineers invented for the island's patriarch, Meriwether Adam Pleasure, and how there were plaques everywhere that explained the gentrification of each building on the property, what it was, and when it got turned into. So that was part 1. And then part 2, we took a walking tour of the island's bars and restaurants on opening day, and we reminisced about the bands and other performers there that made the evening special. And in part 3, we took deep dives into the 2 most popular clubs on the island, Comedy Warehouse and the Adventurers Club. So tonight we are on part 4. We're going to talk about the changes that happened on the island through the 1990s and the 2000s and the eventual closure of the island as we knew it. So everyone, I believe, actually did visit during this time period that's on the show tonight, right? So like 90s, 2000s. Yes. So yeah. So this absolutely. This. So before, I think only Todd and I were maybe had strong memories of it. So this is good because everybody can kind of jump in on this one.
And this was kind of like, would we call this peak Pleasure Island almost?
Oh, through the 90s? Absolutely.
Yeah. Like this is tippy top. This is where it was rocking every night.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. So the one thing I will preface all of this with is when we did episode 1, the people that were in charge of designing it, I think Rick Rothschild and some other folks, they had done a ton of research, and they knew intrinsically that a facility like this would have a 10-year lifespan. And after 10 years, you had to do something in order to refresh it or it would die. And they apparently in their research found countless examples of bar complexes and things that would stay open for 10 years and close. So they knew that there would be a window where it could be the same and be okay, but then they would have to do more stuff in order to keep it going. But you'll see that they actually added more things pretty continually, and there were a number of changes as time went along. So that's what we'll be talking about tonight. So we got through, I think, with our first couple of episodes, kind of exactly what happened up until the opening in '89. So we're going to go forward from there. We talked about this a little bit in the second episode, but we'll go over it again real quick just to get everybody up to speed as we go through this. So the first club to make changes was Videopolis East, which was a teen club. And within months after opening, it was changed to The Cage, which played music from the then new rave and techno music scene. So bands like Quadrophonia, Army of Lovers, Lords of Acid, and the KLF. So those of you who recognize those names I just said that are listening, thank you. You are my people. For those of you that don't, that is probably why the club only lasted for about a year and a half. On December 31st, 1992, 8 tracks opened up in place of The Cage, playing 70s disco music, which was very appealing to the majority of the island's visitors who were in their 30s and 40s of age at that time. And you probably, if you went during that, it's like you'll remember there were huge lines like out the door every night, because that is where, the middle-aged people of that era like to go, because that was the music that they grew up with. All the televisions from The Cage stayed in place, but the decor was updated with disco balls and a colored light-up dance floor, sort of like in Saturday Night Fever. And there were posters from movies in the 70s hung up over the walls. As I said, the club was a instant success. There were always long lines waiting to get in, and I think that was probably true right up to when it closed. That place was always busy, and possibly because I think it might have been the smallest of all the clubs on property there too. It was relatively tiny. I mean, the dance floor was maybe 20 by 40 or something. It wasn't very large. It did have sort of like a second floor where you could look over, but it wasn't a huge club at all. The next change at Pleasure Island. Okay, so did anybody go to 8 Tracks? Does anybody have any memories?
I think I walked in there for a little period of time. I'm trying to remember. I mean,
that's my exact memory, is walking in.
I was there for maybe a half hour, if that.
Less than that for us. We walked in. There was it was early in the night. Nobody was dancing. It was, like, all right, let's go out and see what else is going on.
I think that's the problem with a lot of them, was that early in the night, just wasn't, things just weren't happening.
Well, I expected to walk in and see Disco Stu running around on his roller skates, and I walked in and it was like 3 tables of people just getting drinks. And
right.
No one was on the dance floor, and I don't dance or know how to dance. So, I was like, all right, let's go.
Right. I am suddenly remembering that maybe once an hour or every hour and a half, all of the bar staff would come down from the sides. They would play YMCA, and they would lead everybody
right up Brian's alley.
Listen, I love the Village People. I love YMCA, but I don't know that I need to be coaxed into.
Yes.
At a family wedding, it's one thing.
Yeah. So they would lead everybody doing the arm gestures, spelling out YMCA, and of course it was a big deal because people love to do that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I went in there very quickly too. I didn't. It was kind of dead. I remember I was probably there in like 2006, 7, right in that range, like right before a couple years before it closed. But it was one of those ones you just wanted to go see. It looked fun on the outside, and it drew you in, but it wasn't like I have to join this party.
Well, by 2007, it might have been past their bedtimes. The patrons that would normally go there.
We'll have our little sidebar here, since I brought it up, as to group dances and things at weddings and whatnot. My vivid memories growing up are the electric slide, and at a really bad wedding, someone might try to do the hokey pokey. Some DJ might try to cart that one out. That then you got into like the Macarena era, and I forget the one that they all. What's the shuffle thing that they all do now?
Cupid shuffle, cha-cha slide.
Yeah, cha-cha slide is what. However, I will tell you, every single function we were ever at that it came on, my dad would turn to me and just go, "I hate the chicken dance." And so anytime the chicken dance would come on, he just hated it and had to let you know. And so by extension, I'm not a particular fan of it either. JT, you look like you don't know what the chicken dance is.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm just checking, just making sure that they have it in Ohio. Like it could have been that it wasn't a regional thing.
No. It was played at anniversaries at dance everywhere that was played.
I mean they played it like the hockey games still. Every now and then it'll come on when
they should really just bust that into the supermarket playlist one day just to see what happens.
Just to see what happens.
All right, so the next change at Pleasure Island was perhaps ironically due to a change at the Downtown Disney Marketplace. As you may recall from some of our earlier episodes, the Village Restaurants Lounge was the go-to place for jazz music in Orlando from its opening in 1975. That was the spot where anytime any notable jazz artist came to town, that's where they were playing. It was well known as a location for that music, and people would really, go out of their way to go there because they would always see the best jazz musicians show up there and play. As part of the changes that transformed the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village into the Disney Village Marketplace in 1990, July, that restaurant was converted into what would become the first location of Chef Mickey's. Chef Mickey's today being the restaurant in the Contemporary Hotel. And all of the jazz cats were thrown out to the street with no place to play jazz anymore. So Judson Green became the president of Walt Disney Attractions. And was there something about him that would make him wanting to make a jazz club a thing make sense? And I don't know if you remember this detail about him or not.
I don't remember, but did he play some instrument?
He did. Yes, he was actually an accomplished jazz pianist.
Okay.
He studied seriously in college before he switched to finance, which led to his hiring at Disney and his rise to the CFO position before he captured the presidency. And so with an aficionado in power, Pleasure Island was sure to get a replacement jazz club eventually. That did happen. On August 27th, 1993, the Pleasure Island Jazz Company opened, which took place of Meriwether's Market Food Court. The club had seating for 240. An early press release billed it as the place for jazz in Central Florida. They booked the best smooth jazz singles, duos, and bands. The club did not offer a full menu, which seems odd because they had the entire restaurant facility from the food court at its disposal. But they did serve wine by the glass, and they had a tapas bar, which is kind of unusual for that time period.
That would have been new and inventive,
right?
Then.
The grand opening featured famed drummer Louis Bellson, vibraphonist and pianist Lionel Hampton, pianist and composer Billy Taylor, and trumpeter Arturo Sandoval. The interior, if you can remember, I know there's probably like three of us that actually went into Meriwether's Market, but it's kind of like a hexagonal design. And it had sort of like a large central area that with a clear story. They put in sort of like a tent-like ceiling with fabric there. And the rooms were decorated with carousel horses and antique carnival fortune-telling machines and also like musical instruments stuck on the wall. The band, whether it was the house band or someone that was coming into play or some combination, they performed usually about 4 or 5 sets a night. An early guide that I have lists performances at 8:30 p.m., 9:45 p.m., 11 p.m., and 12:30 a.m. So nothing early, but I'm sure they had pre-recorded music that they played there otherwise. But that was that, and I know there's quite a few people that enjoy jazz that really, really liked that club because they did bring in great players, and they were sad to see that go eventually. But it lasted a good while. Eventually would be replaced by Raglan Road. Next up, here's one that I think everybody probably has some fond memories of. Planet Hollywood. The stars are out the night of December 17th, 1994, as Planet Hollywood opened on the westernmost edge of Pleasure Island, just outside of the gates and over the bridge. The restaurant's 110-foot high sphere was built at a cost of $15 million, and it was actually the first location in the chain to be built with a brand new structure. Before, they would just move into some other space that existed, so this is the first time they built something fresh for it. The grand opening was a star-studded affair attended by more than 40 celebrities, including co-owners Demi Moore, then husband Bruce Willis, of course Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, but also Wesley Snipes, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Cindy Crawford, Roseanne Barr, David Hasselhoff, Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith, and Richard Branson.
That's
and of course Bruce Willis. Opening. That was, and that's only a small subset of the 40. I wonder if Carrot Top was there. I think he was.
Really?
I think he might have been. Bruce Willis performed with his band, The Accelerators. Did they perform his 1987 hit Respect Yourself? I'm about 99% sure.
Did he perform the Seagram's Golden Wine Coolers commercial song that he sang? Yeah. That's the question.
I'm trying to remember in the timeline if he signed that afterwards or...
Oh, it had to be. The wine coolers were very much in 80s.
Yeah.
Like the second half of the 80s. So it had to have been after that because they came out to compete with Bartles and James. And then they changed the law to make it not financially advantageous for them to sell wine mixed with things. So wine coolers went away after becoming like this huge seller.
What an era. They were the seltzer of their day.
They very much were the what's that seltzer brand whose name is
the White Claw?
Schweppes?
White Claw. The White Claw of their day. They just had like this meteoric for a few summers, man. They were it. Like everybody had their wine coolers, and it's the same critique that they hit with some other things you'll probably think of, but that they were basically, alcohol that tasted like soda or whatever, and you could down them one after the other, and there was allegations you marketed them to kids, or that they were too
Zima
attractive.
was another one that came out.
Zima was very much a 90s.
See, Zima's the opposite 95. Because that was a drink that you didn't want to have one after another.
It tasted
so terrible.
Something different.
But it was very much a club drink.
Very much
it was a mid-90s club drink. Yeah. You ordered it after you had 3 of something you liked, and you lost your wits. You're like, give me a Zima.
Yeah. And they were all marketed under malt beverages, which was interesting.
Well, yeah, they were malt liquor instead of based on some other more reputable,
hops.
Expensive liquors.
Hops or
hops
something,
and grapes and
poison, nuclear waste.
So if you enjoyed a Zima at Pleasure Island, please write us for next month. We'd love to hear your story.
If you still have the bottle, or if you were a bartender, I know who's our guy that Joe Barlow, right? Joe Barlow's our guy that had every spot down there. I know he's got a Zima story from one of the clubs there. So looking forward to your email, Joe.
Yeah. If you want to watch this grand opening, the gala was broadcast as a 1-hour special on the E Network. Remember the E Network?
We've got our next movie night.
Is this when like Stallone and Bruce Willis walked up in those like Leatherman jacket looking things, and they're waving?
Oh, right, with the big embroidered Planet Hollywood logo on the back. Yeah, absolutely. The show was hosted by Greg Kinnear. So before he was a movie star, and he was just a host on.
He was the host of The Daily Show.
Oh, was he?
Or was it Talk Soup?
Talk Soup. Yep.
Talk Soup. And then didn't he host The Daily Show too? Maybe I'm just confusing. I thought he did.
So there was another guy who
he
hosts the
hosted
Daily
Talk
Show.
Soup until 1995, and then he moved to NBC later with Greg Kinnear.
Okay,
there we
he
go.
took over for Tom Snyder. He took over after Tom Snyder.
Yes,
Tom Snyder was on CBS, so later was
NBC, I think.
Bob Costas was later before Greg Kinnear?
Maybe.
Anyway, keep going.
I think you're thinking of the red-haired guy that hosted the Daily Show.
Ted Linhart is yelling at us.
Right. Before Jon Stewart, and that guy went on to host a late night talk show as well.
It's terrible. I can't. Who is it? Who hosted the Daily Show for?
Hang on,
before John.
Everyone loved him, and then once Jon Stewart took over, it was like, oh, that guy.
Because he would always, here it is, your moment of zen, and would always show the shot of the Kung Fu movie where the guy's head got crushed with the. He was like, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, your moment of zen. He would always do that at the end of the show. That's it. Craig Kilborn. That's it. Sorry, Craig Kilborn. We couldn't remember your name, but
wherever you are, we loved you.
Yes.
Until we didn't. So there'll be a link in the show notes to that 1 hour special, so everyone can watch it. So I know all of us have seen this restaurant. We ate there. Any favorite foods and/or favorite memorabilia that you sat under or around inside the restaurant? I'll start with you. I'll start with JT if he remembers anything.
I mean, we've gone recently, and I know there's stuff still in there from the original, right? I mean, that you got the classic. Isn't that the one that had Stallone in the cryo frozen body double?
I think that was hanging from the ceiling, right? You could sit under it.
Yeah, but I mean, as context, I never went when the place was blue. I've only gone in recent years. So once they redid it, I don't know why, I just never did. But yeah, it's always been there, and it was like part of the skyline,
Right. Yep. All right, Brian, go for it.
I was a big Planet Hollywood fan when they first opened, and there was a New York location. I went in London. Obviously, I went in Orlando. I feel like I went to 5 or 6 of them in different, maybe Chicago. Like anytime we'd go to a city that had them, because they propagated in the 90s. And then the last trip to the old blue one in Disney Springs. And then the first visit to the new planetarium one. It's the same building. They just repainted it. But I had a terrible meal there a year or two ago after they reopened it. And I just said, because one of the big things was, so they don't attribute because they don't own it anymore. The Stars don't own it anymore. They've since sold it off to, I don't know who owns it now, some restaurant group. And so Stallone and Demi Moore and all them are out of it. And but the big thing was their favorite dishes or dishes they helped create with the chefs were on the menu. So Demi Moore, the chicken crunch is still on the menu, which is an appetizer. It's chicken fingers, but instead of breading, they're breaded in Captain Crunch. And it sounds delicious, except, spoiler alert, Captain Crunch, once you fry it, I think it cooks all the sugar off or something, because it just tastes like regular crispy coating. But Chicken Crunch is still on the menu there as of last year, and I remember getting it and having it delivered, I think, as an appetizer. Actually, we got the appetizer sampler, and it was just like, everything was just like, this is all so gross. You got these burgers that were falling apart, and I'm like, this is terrible. This is like...
I like the appetizer Ferris wheel you can get now.
I think that's what we got. I think that's what we got. Has like potato skins and mozzarella sticks and some of the chicken crunch but sometimes I know we talk a lot about this, who the audience is for those things, and that is one that is very big with European and South American tourists. who don't have those restaurants in their country. And so when they come here and they're here for 3-4 weeks, and it's like, you stand in line behind them, and it's a big deal to see that Hollywood memorabilia and all. And I think we've gotten kind of desensitized to it over the years, and it doesn't faze us.
Brian, do you know what a celebrity endorsement? There was a lot of them. One of the Beatles actually endorsed Planet Hollywood.
I'd be shocked if it wasn't Ringo Starr.
It's Ringo.
Because Ringo had money problems for 25 years until they finally did the anthology thing. So I'm not, he did Pizza Hut commercials. He did, Ringo, was willing to show up for a paycheck. So
there you go.
Funny. I'm Ringo, and I like Planet Hollywood. That's funny.
Here's my drumstick.
Well, Brian, I think you hit the nail on the head. We've become immune to all these special things. Like, I was a hard rock fan, so I never really went. I'm trying to even remember if I went to Planet Hollywood or not. Maybe once. I don't know. But hard rock was the thing that I wanted to go to and see. But
and that was down at Universal.
It was Universal, yeah. I went to that one. It was in the back lot there, the guitar shaped one. And it was huge the first time I went. I mean, you had to get the shirt. Everybody had a hard rock shirt. But I mean, and now it's like you can bid on stuff and we're making so many props and people are building things that, so what? And as I got older, I was like, so what if it was used in the movie? Like, that's the hat he wore. Like, okay. I mean, yes, there are things in Americana and movies that I think have become integral to, what the Smithsonian has, Archie Bunker's chair and maybe Indiana Jones' whip and his hat. All right, those are cool things, but they're not going to hang them up. They're going to be, as Indiana Jones would say, they belong in a museum.
We've also found out that there were 40 chairs and 50 whips.
Exactly. So there is no one thing.
There's a dozen pairs of the ruby slippers, and so there's this pair and that pair, and some she wore and some she didn't. And
I mean, how many shorts did Apollo Creed wear? That's the...
I don't know, but that was stuff we didn't know. Hollywood people knew, but we didn't know.
Right. That's why
you'd walk in there and we were wide-eyed, and
it's because every Planet Hollywood got one.
Right, but when you'd walk in and see C-3PO in every single one, M and R2D, well, which ones are the ones? Like, how many of these things are there? And
he's
you
in
find
Star
out they made
Tours
1,000
too.
of them. It's so it's still cool to see this stuff, but we've lost our innocence.
Yep,
right. It looks like,
and now
I'm looking
now
at
the burger has to stand on its own.
I'm looking at pictures now. Boy, there's just like so much less stuff than there was before.
Well, we did when we ate there last year. We ate on the first floor, but I did take the time. We all did. There was 4 of us eating. We did take the time after we were done to go up to the 3rd floor. Walk around up there, then the second floor. Just kind of, we're walking there looking over at tables of people eating at whatever's mounted behind them. But I wanted to kind of see what I remembered, and there's still stuff there, but, and a fair amount of stuff. But, it's, as I said, it's not as impactful anymore because I feel like you see that stuff everywhere now. Like
I remember the Herbie the Love Bug.
Yeah, hanging from the ceiling. That's still there, I believe.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, it's still hanging up there over the ground floor bar. But
that wasn't the one from the studios, though. It died.
Well, that's the thing. There's like 50 of them.
Yeah. Right.
Or you can easily make one too.
Yeah.
Didn't they have like the Beverly Hillbillies truck or something hanging from the?
Maybe from the 94 like the 90s movie, or from the original,
I don't know. I'm seeing a picture of like this Jeep with a rocking chair in the back. I'm trying to figure out what in the world.
Yeah.
That is Beverly Hillbillies, I believe. I see this picture now.
I mean, I have seen so many. I mean, I will say I have seen so many Batmobiles of different eras in my lifetime in different places that I'm just like, I see a Batmobile now. It's like, it's a Batmobile.
I'm a critic now of them. I go, that one's not a very good, well done one. Like that, the last one I saw was a lot better. It's less glossy, and he wasn't that glossy in the movie.
Same thing with the time machines, right? Everybody's making one. It's like, okay, which is the real one? And we know there's only 5, and one of them's gone. And like, okay.
I
do see a motorcycle on the ceiling. That's either a Lethal Weapon or Terminator 2.
I was going to say, I think it was Terminator. I think that one was from Terminator.
Robert Patrick drove it, yeah.
Yeah, I remembered some Terminator things, like one of the jackets with the big bullet holes in it.
Yeah.
There's always a T1000 arm, like the robot arm.
Have you seen this boy?
There's some YouTube. I'm scrolling through a YouTube video. There's like Leonardo DiCaprio's outfit from Titanic.
Oh,
and so that might have been a later edition.
Is it waterlogged or?
It's on a door.
Which one?
It's on a door.
Or
no, like his poor Jack.
Card playing only outfit he owns, outfit.
There you go.
Yeah, got the wind in my lungs.
Yeah, that's the one. Oh, and a robot from The Fifth Element, so that's good. I like that one.
Yeah, they still have like glass cases on the second level. I'm seeing here, like with the different costumes. There's stormtroopers. There's
cool.
It's still fun. I mean, I think we tend to go because it's entertaining for the kids. The TV's huge. I mean, it's you're going there just because.
And you love a themed restaurant.
I do. I think that's great. They do have, which I haven't gotten the currently they have the milkshake with the slice of cake on the top of it.
It's just know my opinion on.
I've never gotten it, but you always look at it. You're like, who's eating that?
Yeah, there's milkshakes, cupcakes, Bloody Marys that they just pile crap on top. But it's just stop that. Knock it off. Stop putting things on top of donuts. Don't put a slice of ham and bacon and an olive on top of a donut. Knock it off.
I call those stunt foods.
Yes.
I hate them. Let me take a Butterfinger and crunch it up on top of this donut. Whoever ate a donut, you know what's really missing from here? A crumbled up Butterfinger. That would be top-notch on top of
I won't take you to Duck Donuts if you're ever in town.
We have funny thing, we had a Duck Donuts here that lasted about 9 weeks.
Really?
In the location where it was. Yeah, as soon as I saw it open up, I'm like, there's no way this is going to last. And then a bagel place moved in its spot about a year later, and I drove by and said the same thing. There's no way this place is going to last, and it's still there. It's still there about a year and a half, 2 years later.
How about that?
That's exciting. Planet Hollywood.
All right, so more exciting changes. So that was a big deal when that opened, and I can't remember if we talked about the AMC Pleasure Island movie theaters before that, but I'm not gonna go there, but I'm sure around the same time or a little before.
Yeah, I believe we mentioned before that, obviously there was not a abundance of multiplexes in Central Florida. And so for that one to open up with, what did it have, 24 screens or whatever? And
10
it opened with 10 and then it expanded later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
1990 it opened.
As for things to do, if it was raining or whatever, that was a good option to have something to do. Right.
Yep.
Okay. So that's great. Planet Hollywood. So we're moving up. We love the themed restaurants. So there was another change. Restaurants suddenly are becoming a big deal there, becoming more important. And like I said, we sort of have hit this time where some restaurants have been opened for a while now. It's time to refresh things. Leases are changing. So the next big change of the island took place on April 22nd, 1995, when the Empress Lily closed, which angered and confused some loyal Disney fans. Levy Restaurants took over the building, which was shaped like a ship, still kind of is. And they turned it into a restaurant called Fulton's Crab House. And they took on a 20-year contract to run that facility. It opened on March 10th, 1996. They kept the interior mostly intact, I think. But they had a single menu throughout the facility instead of having themed rooms within the building with distinct offerings. So before it used to be, there were really like 4 restaurants in the Empress Lily, and they all had different menus.
And there was a lounge, and there was a fine dining restaurant, and something a little more casual, seafoody, and and then another bar.
Right. And so they ditched the lounge. That was totally gone. They also removed the paddle wheel and the smokestacks.
Yes.
Which was...
That was a hit. That was a hit to the gut, I think, for a lot of people.
because the paddle wheel moved.
It did, yeah.
Rotate.
Yeah, and
simulated going somewhere.
I don't know why you would take those things off. It didn't really.
I mean, I can only think it was a,
well, it's still shaped like a riverboat, right. Though. I mean, Fulton's kept up the idea that you were getting on a riverboat. It just didn't have any means of propulsion anymore.
Right. I just remember they added that giant, lit up sign on top of it that you could see from forever. But did anybody eat there?
Yeah, we ate there.
I ate Fulton's once.
It was more recent. I think it was within the last 10 years. It wasn't back then.
I in fact, I've eaten at all 3 iterations.
Oh, there you go.
I ate at the Empress Lily and ate at Fulton's and then ate at Paddlefish.
All right. Anything that you recall stand out?
Not. I mean, Fulton's was fine. It was, it was a seafood themed restaurant. A step up from Red Lobster, but not a big step up.
Right. My memory is it was always busy.
Oh, very, very busy. But again, you're talking about these restaurants, and I don't know if it's already covered in the last, or if it's covering it tonight when they added the West Side, but all of that, you have to keep in mind what was happening in the rest of the resort, and that they were opening these giant hotels every year. They were adding thousands of rooms to the property, and those people wanted something to do. Even if they were park people, and the parks tended to be open later back then, and extra magic hours at night, and e-ride nights at the Magic Kingdom, and all that was part of this time frame. But there was just a critical mass of people looking for things to do after a day in the parks. And so the Village, which became Downtown Disney, all part of, the Pleasure Island complex, and it just got busier and busier. So they kept adding things, and one of the things they had to keep adding was restaurants because you had to feed them.
Right. And this also, I think, was really kind of marked a change from Disney owning the clubs at Pleasure Island to starting to outsource everything, becoming more risk adverse, wanting to make sure somebody else was actually running stuff, and Disney was happy to take its cut of the profits, whatever that deal is, but let somebody else run it. And they had a great relationship with that Levy company. So we will start to see more of this happen now, with this as kind of the first big change of this going on.
I was going to say that had to be one of the early, not only Hollywood, but this, where all right, you just come in here, take the space, put your name up, run it for us. We get a percentage of the profits, and, we've attracted additional people and stuff. So.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, now it's into the parks, which we didn't even expect years ago. So
I'm not sure who copied who, but you see when the transformation of the Village to Downtown Disney and Universal City Walk opening the next year, because I think 94 was when they switched over to Downtown Disney from the Village, if I remember correctly.
A little bit later, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So when did it become Downtown Disney? I'm just curious. When was the makeover?
So in 1997.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's later than I thought. So then we'll blame Universal, because, Universal opened City Walk, and there's Annie Ann's Pretzels, and there's the Motown Cafe, and there's all of these restaurants that Universal doesn't run. They're all third parties.
Bubba Gump.
Shrimp Company, and Emerald's Restaurant was there, and all their fast. It was like a mall food court, and a lot of chains, and Disney basically said, that's a good idea. We'll do that.
Yeah,
and it did. It changed the nature of how they kind of moved forward, and it's smart business, but loyalists and old timers will tell you that it definitely impacted the quality of what you were offered, because Disney lost quality control at that point.
Right. Was that also the time period that they started doing the meals included with your resort stays?
The dining plan. That is an excellent question. I feel like that came later, but
that might have been late 90s too.
Okay. Disney Dine Plan didn't come in place until 2005, so it's not that.
Oh, it was later.
Right.
Okay.
So we can cut that out. So Fulton's Crab House actually finished out that 20-year contract. They closed in 2016 in April to make way for another Levy restaurant, Paddlefish, but we will talk about that another day because that's
30 years when they close.
Yeah, there you go.
But they did bring back the paddle and the smokestacks.
Oh, when they rebuilt it now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's. I guess they are back, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it doesn't move. So it's a stationary paddle wheel.
Okay, interesting.
And I did have to Google what a paddlefish was because it's an actual fish. It's an odd thing to name the restaurant, but
it works.
Can you get paddlefish there?
You cannot. It's not on the menu.
Is paddlefish edible though? I'm trying to think if it's something that you would actually eat.
I'm not going to read the Wikipedia article again.
I mean, you can eat anything. Whether you can survive it or not is another question.
It's a very bony fish.
I'm gonna have to look.
The things we do for our
paddlefishes. They are ray-finned fish. They look like sturgeon.
Okay. Yum.
Propagation and culture. They were imported from America to the USSR for aquaculture. They're introduced into several rivers in Europe and Asia and were successfully reproduced in Russia. They're now being raised throughout Europe. Fertilized paddlefish eggs, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. Some of the paddlefish are captured in carp farms. Doesn't say. They're farmed in Cuba for caviar production. So I guess they're... let me do this. Do people eat?
They're filter feeders.
Paddlefish. Paddlefish have long been an alternative to sturgeon as a source of meat and caviar. Its meat is of secondary importance, but is delicious fresh or smoked, according to somebody trying to sell it to you.
All right. So, as I think we just talked about, 1997 was a big year for changes. So September 7th, 1997, the Disney Village Marketplace became known as Downtown Disney. And then on September 15th, 1997, the Downtown Disney West Side opened. So that was an entirely new area, and it changed Pleasure Island from being a destination to a thoroughfare to walk to the new development. Really radically kind of changed people's perceptions of that area and how they interacted with it. I just remember, especially in the afternoons, oftentimes the shops weren't closed and you were just walking through this empty wasteland going from one side to the other. And it sort of took all the specialness away from Pleasure Island. And I wonder if that ended up changing people's perceptions as time went forward and kind of devalued Pleasure Island.
Yeah, I mean, I always likened it to walking on the Vegas Strip in the daylight. It's a whole different view.
Yeah.
And that I do remember, when the West Side opened, wandering down there because they had the Virgin Megastore. And I think George's Music was over there, so you could go in and look at some guitars. And Gloria Estefan's Cuban restaurant was there, and
movie theater was that way.
The movie theater was over there. I'm trying to think. There were a few other things.
The Neon Armadillo was all the way at the end, right?
You had Disney Quest, you had House of Blues, you had Cirque du Soleil, and we won't go into the West Side tonight because that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yep.
Kettle of paddlefish, but
there we go.
Just know that there was an alteration in usage patterns because of that. So let's move on to another change that happened. Does anybody remember what big trend happened in country music in the 1990s?
Line dancing.
Line dancing, exactly.
Achy breaky heart.
Yep.
You can blame the achy breaky heart.
So The Neon Armadillo only had a moderately sized dance floor, and not really one that was big enough to handle this new trend. They needed new space. Contracts for Pleasure Island's original tenants were coming due. And as I said, there was kind of a need to bring in new things. And all that was about to converge. And as we actually were just talking about, this is the decade where flashy novelty chain restaurants like Hard Rock and Planet Hollywood and Rainforest Cafe were opening up wildly successful locations throughout the country. This leads to a country version of the Hard Rock Cafe. Nashville's Wildhorse Saloon opened in 1994 and very quickly capitalized on the line dancing surge in popularity. They ended up hosting a show on the Nashville network called the Wildhorse Saloon Dance Show. And that bar was so successful in the Nashville location that the company decided they wanted to expand that to other cities. So on May 31st, 1998, the Orlando version of the Wildhorse Saloon opened up in the former location of the Fireworks Factory restaurant. The renovated 27,000 square foot facility was co-owned by Levy Restaurants. Again, they're there. The Chicago company that also operated Fulton's Crab House, as we talked about, and the Portobello Yacht Club, formerly ran the Fireworks Factory. And they started a joint partnership with the Gaylord Entertainment Company, who owns the Grand Ole Opry. The 2-level, 200-seat restaurant had a 1,500-foot square dance floor, which was plenty large enough for line dancers, plus a stage for live performances. And if you didn't know how to line dance, you could take classes there in two-step and also line dancing. And there was a group called the Wildhorse Dancers, who were, I believe, all ladies, who were, the resident dance teachers, and they would show you how to do it. The interior was kind of basically gutted from Fireworks Factory. It was designed as a contemporary, updated version of a traditional country music hall. It had an entrance foyer. When you walked in, there were country memorabilia, guitar art kind of all around, and then you would open up into like the large dance floor. It was kind of like a facade of a barn roof over it. On the outside, they kind of left the building as it was, and then they attached like these giant metal mountains with like big horses that were on the logo outside of it. So there were like these 40-foot flats of horses on the outside to kind of draw you in. And it did well. So this opened in 1998, right? In 2000, Gaylord decided they wanted to focus on building out resort properties. They had already spent $125 million to construct the Opryland Hotel in Orlando, which we now know today as the Gaylord Palms Hotel. The company took an $11 million tax write-off, and they sold Disney the location along with the ability to keep the name rights. And so Disney operated that until the year 2001, when they opened up the dance club Motion. And I'm guessing from this crew, none of us probably really went into the Wildhorse, except maybe to take a peek and turn around and leave.
Yeah, I think I looked in there and went, okay, I'm good. It just wasn't my thing.
Right. Fair enough. Speaking of other companies that wanted to get into the red hot themed restaurant business, BET Entertainment owner Robert Johnson started a subsidiary, BET Holdings 2, which opened up 4 BET themed restaurants beginning in January 1997, featuring American cuisine with a Southern flair. He decided that they would extend that concept to a combination of dance club and restaurant. And on June 10th, 1998, the BET Soundstage Club, a hip hop and R&B dance club, opened up in the former space of the Neon Armadillo, which was now empty because they opened up the Wildhorse Saloon. So BET, that's why the BET Soundstage Club ended up next to the Adventures Club in the old Armadillo space. Yeah. I've got some quotes from the newspaper. Gloria Naden, the BET entertainment director, said that once inside, patrons would feel as if they'd stepped into Planet Groove, the dance show that aired on BET. The club goers would be surrounded by television monitors, cameras, wandering hosts, DJs, and sounds ranging from Janet Jackson to Maxwell. As the evening kicks in and the energy level starts to rise, Nadine said, the club will transform into something that's like New York's famed Palladium, complete with appearances by such national DJs as Kid Capri, DJ Cool, and DJ Red Alert. During the grand opening event, there were performances by LSG, Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill, Destiny's Child, and Escape. And that was broadcast as a 2-hour special on the BET network, which I have not been able to find in its entirety. I did find one Instagram video of Beyonce performing with Destiny's Child. They actually ended up doing it, I think, I believe they actually ended up doing a combination of stuff within the club, but also on the West End stage, because there were just so many people. It would have been overwhelming to try to put everyone in the club. You'll appreciate this, I think, Brian. The club also had a special VIP section with its own dance floor. And to get in, all you had to do was buy a bottle of champagne or a bottle of wine, a bottle of Hypnotic, or a bottle of Elise. So that was your gateway into the roped off VIP area. Yeah, isn't that nice?
$200 bottle of $30 wine.
And all of this went well into the year 2000, when the BET company and its holding and everything that it held were sold to Viacom for $2.3 billion. Viacom, of course, owned Nickelodeon, which was a competitor to the Disney Channel. Viacom did not want to be in the restaurant business, so they actually closed those restaurants or sold them to the people that were operating them. And kind of like the same story with Wildhorse, they set up a licensing agreement where Disney, would own the club but could retain the name and use it. And the BET Soundstage Club actually managed to stay open until all of Pleasure Island closed on September 27th, 2008. So they managed to go a while. Okay.
Good for them.
Here comes our sea change. Fall 1998. Funmeister gone. The last gasp. He's out, and this is when you start seeing that green oval PI logo show up everywhere.
And right around your 10-year mark, you're approaching your 10-year mark, and they start taking away the initial theming and.
Yep, exactly. And it's just like they predicted. You got about 10 years until things start to sour, and you got to do something different. So then it was time to refresh, the rebrand, and make it like it was new all over again. Although I think they still I can't remember if they stopped doing the countdowns at midnight at that time, or if they retained that.
I recall it at least once when I was there. I don't remember I remember the stage a little bit, something going on, and then that whole thing, because I vaguely read that. What's funny though, you went to the PI and you put those two logos next to each other. The original one with Funmeister and all the confetti just screams early 90s, and then the PI kind of is evolutionary. You can tell it's
it seems very 2000. I was actually surprised that it was 1998, because I look at it, that's 2000s.
Yeah,
it was just before that. So there was a sort of a frog mascot that appeared occasionally, like a club hopper, but I don't know if that was just a promotional thing.
That was just Kermit the Frog out for a night with his friends. Don't misread it.
That's funny. So, which leads to changes in the 2000s. So we're kind of in the home stretch here. Let's see if we can get through this. So, 2001, as I said, Wildhorse Saloon closed down. Disney converted that into a dance club called Motion. This was one of the few things that was Disney owned, because I don't think they could get anybody to take over that space, which was, 27,000 square feet. That's absolutely enormous. And I think it was converted at what was probably the lowest cost possible. In fact, they left the mountains on the building out front, but they took the horses down, which really made no sense for a dance club, but there it was. I went one time after a marathon And I remember them playing the cha-cha slide, and I couldn't do it because my legs were like jello. But I have I remember it was like I think when you did the marathon, it was included. There was like a party at that location for the people that ran it. That was
okay.
Only you would get in as someone that did the marathon or the half marathon. And so we went there.
Motion is roughly, now if you're there, like where that boating themed restaurant is, roughly in that area, isn't it?
Yes.
What's that?
The boathouse.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know why I kept wanting to say the yacht house, and I'm like, it's not the yacht house. The yacht house is the restaurant in the in Summer Rental, the John Candy movie.
I don't remember going to Motion. I don't remember even seeing it open, but I could be wrong.
2005. As I was talking about this change with having the West Side added, really changed the way things went. But in 2005, they actually ripped out the gates to the island, dropped cover charges at all the clubs, and visitors at downtown. Oh, that's right. Visitors of downtown. Okay, I have to revise something that we said earlier. Visitors at Downtown Disney were welcome to walk through starting in 2005. I forgot they actually shut off Pleasure Island for a while, and you would have to walk all the way around it if you wanted to get from the marketplace over to the west side.
Who came up with that brilliant idea?
Yeah, because what they did is they put wristbands on you, and you were allowed to, if you had paid the cover charge, you could go into the clubs. Otherwise, you were just allowed to walk through. Like, you could buy something from the sausage place or something, like one of the food vendors. But you were not allowed into the Adventures Club or the Comedy Club or anything unless you had the wristband showing that you had paid the cover charge. So you were allowed to walk through there to get to the other side.
It felt totally different because I went the year before this and then the year after. The year before, you felt like you crossed the threshold, you paid your ticket fee, and everybody was there for the same reason, for Pleasure Island. And after that, you're out there, okay, same mindset, I'm going to go out and party and club and all that. And then you look over and there's like a family pushing a stroller through and they're, you're, wait, this is just weird.
It's exactly what killed Studio 54.
Was it? They put...
Yeah, people started, cutting through there to get to the mall and walking through there with shopping bags and strollers, and people like, I'm trying to do some coke over here.
They didn't learn their lesson from Studio 54. But it was just different. It just, after that, I go, this doesn't feel the same. It doesn't seem like a fun night out. And then it just kind of went downhill from there, I felt like.
Right. I understand the land was there, but like, what a weird move to like sandwich this between two otherwise popular free shopping areas. Just
and you get the sense, I'd have to look at a map, but you get the sense that today the same challenge to say, well, we're just going to build a walkway around it on the other side, over the water to get people to between the two sections, instead of being like, well, we'll just build it on the other side of Pleasure Island and figure it out later.
And that's why they have all those walkways over the water now, and like they did a lot of work to try to connect those spaces all up.
Only took them 30 years to get it right.
Yeah, we'll get it eventually.
At this time, is this when they remove the Fort Wilderness train ticket booths at the same time?
Well,
that's when
there was no. I don't even know if you stopped there or where you picked up your wristband to get into a club.
Yeah.
Because they sat there for a while, though, I know, kind of dormant.
I recall there were booths, especially in front of the AMC theaters, like a round booth, probably kind of exactly where that booth is now that you buy the tickets for the balloon. Yeah, and that's where you would walk up to buy your wristbands for Pleasure Island that night. Ay caramba. Okay, so 2005. Not speaking of Ay caramba, but a completely different ethnicity. The Raglan Road Irish Pub and Restaurant came to be. in the space previously occupied by the Pleasure Island Jazz Company. And not only did they take over the Pleasure Island Jazz Company, they took over additional space that was there originally and unused, and then added another 4 times the square footage to build that thing out to 20,000 square feet. That restaurant seats more than 900 people simultaneously. Wow. It is a monster. And it is also always busy.
You still have to wait for a table sometimes.
Yeah. It's actually owned and operated by a company called the Great Irish Pubs Florida. It's an Irish-owned company that's behind the Nine Fine Irishmen pub and restaurant at the New York Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. And Disney actually sought them out. They went to Vegas and pitched them on, hey, we love this thing that you're doing here. Why don't you come to Orlando and do it with us? And they said, okay. The interior of the pub was imported almost entirely from Ireland. They brought 14 containers of millwork and antiques and lighting and glass from Ireland to the US to put in there. There's 4 different bars inside that represent 4 different styles of Irish pubs. There's a very high Victorian style bar that's styled after Dublin pubs. There's a couple of shop pubs, which are ones where like the person not only runs a pub, but they also might run a storefront, like a post office or an apothecary or something else. So
a chemist.
One of them came out of a pub in Tipperary, and you can actually see there's like handles and labels on the drawers of what they sold before. And that one's over 120 years old. So they really did a great job of being very authentic in the stuff that they brought over. Although it is designed like, I mean, it's you walk in and there's like just a giant warehouse, kind of subsection into little areas. But they brought a lot of stuff
with the stage in the center, the raised area where the Irish dancing and music is going on. So on my last visit there, which was to have lunch with a friend, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago or a year ago, I don't remember. They all run together. But we walked in, they said, do you have any preference on where you'd like to be seated? And I said, yes, as far away from that, and I pointed at the dancing and the music, as you can put me in this restaurant. And we ended up in front of these like really nice like living room chairs in front of a fireplace in a side room. But I just like, I'm here to have lunch with my friend, not have Michael Flatley, doing Lord of the Dance next to my table while, the pan flute is, blaring, and like it's not my thing. You know me, and live music is fine when I'm there to hear live music, but not while I'm trying to eat and talk to people.
And just put you at a high top table next to that live music, and
that would be even worse. And then just serve dishes with olives
and capers
and salmon.
And we're gonna we're gonna abbreviate everything. We're gonna make a resi for you. We're gonna put EVOO on your sandwich. On your Sammy.
Sammy. Somebody sent me something the other day that had that on a menu. I said, tell them there's no such thing. Talking like a 5-year-old.
So the restaurant had a well-known chef, Kevin Dundon, who made traditional Irish fare with a modern flair. And as you said, there's music, storytelling, dancing. You get kind of like the full Irish experience there. And the food is actually very high quality, I think, for that style of food.
I recall it being tasty. I can look at a picture and see what I had, but I recall it being tasty.
Go. I'm sure you had Scotch eggs at some point.
I don't know. It was lunch, so I wasn't like, I don't think I was chowing down there.
Scotch eggs have to be fresh, though. They got to be good. They have to be good.
There is
You don't bring them from Scotland prior over the water?
The ones that, I don't know if they're still on the menu, but the ones at Rose and Crown are very good. There I am with Deb Wills and I can tell you exactly what I had. I was there twice. And I had a burger. I had a burger with frizzled onions and Irish chips And if I zoom in, I can figure out which burger it was.
Zoom enhance.
Yeah, it's people always say, "What do you take a picture of that?" Says because I had the boring burger, boar spelled like the animal.
I was gonna say that first one sounds a little messy for you.
A grilled wild boar burger with cashel blue cheese, crispy onion strings, arugula, port and pear chutney with herb aioli served on a floury potato bun. And I can send you photos of both of these so you can see that I'm not lying.
So every time, it's so funny. Whenever I go there, it still feels like it's new to me. Raglan Road, although it has been there now since 2005. It always feels like it's a new place. But yeah, crazy busy, really bringing in the business. So good on them. They made obviously a great choice to do that. So that brings us to 2007. As you were talking about, they opened it up. They brought it through. You were not a big fan, JT, of that. On January 1st, 2007, they reversed course, and they decided to take all of the nightclubs and ban all the patrons under the age of 21. The only one that could go in, the only way you could get in nightclubs again is if you were 21 up at BET Soundstage, 8 Tracks, Mannequins, Dance Palace, Rock and Roll Beach Club, and Motion. The only exceptions were Adventurers Club and Comedy Warehouse. And so they realize we've made a grave mistake. We need to make this not family friendly again and try to get back once what we once had. But that was all relatively short-lived because on September 27th, 2008, the entirety of Pleasure Island closed down. It was done, put a fork in it, lasted almost, 20 years, right? From 89 to 2008. Yeah. So good run. One other little change that happened was Paradiso 37 opened up June 5th, 2009. Still opened. Still, a good restaurant, pulls people in. And for a while, things sort of sat. There was an announcement made that the area would get reworked into something called Hyperion Wharf. And there was some concept art that was shared of that. But then Disney really didn't move forward on that.
It was that period of time. And, again, Bob Iger, the genius. Oh, what a great CEO. They announced Hyperion Wharf. And then literally it just within 6 months, everybody stopped talking about it. Like it never happened. And I don't mean they mentioned hey, this is something where blue sky. They actually announced it, released artwork. There was a press release put out, the full works. Hey, this is Downtown Disney's being reimagined as Hyperion Wharf and named after, was Hyperion Avenue is where Walt's first studio was?
Studios. Yeah. They even gave it an opening date of 2013.
Right. At the same time, around there, they announced they were building New Fantasyland. And here's what it's going to look like. It'll be 4 castles, and there are all these princess experiences and everything. And then, over the course of the next year, they walked back about 70% of that and completely redid what was announced for New Fantasyland to put Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in the middle of it. And
actually, didn't that come a little bit later too? They didn't have that, and then I don't know. Maybe I'm getting my stories confused.
No, that's where all the princess meet.
The mine train.
They're gonna have these houses.
That was gonna be the all the fairies, the Tinkerbells, and all them. Yeah. And then allegedly Iger, who has a son, I think he was the one said there's nothing here for boys to do, or somebody did an Imagineer, and then they came.
There was testing on that too. That it was very geared towards one audience and. It was like a gigantic bibbidi-bobbidi boutique, and, they needed to kind of look at their diverse fandom and say, well, maybe we should.
Now, I have here November 18th, 2010 is when they announced Hyperion Wharf.
Okay.
And, it didn't happen. I honestly look at the concept art. I'm most glad it didn't. I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah, I mean it was it was an attempt to modernize, again, to lose all that 90s theming from downtown Disney. But Disney Springs is fun. It's just so busy all the time. It's so funny. I was on property for 10 days. I never set foot in Disney Springs.
And I think part of the reason, if I was going to guess anything, I think part of the reason that it didn't happen, maybe more than anything else, is I think the thought was they were going to try to take it over and run it because they couldn't get third parties to come in and lease anything. And what they finally decided was, you know what, let's rethink this and make this more open to third party leasing. We saw, I think, some leaked PowerPoints at one point online of the types of companies that they were looking to pitch to bring people in. And ultimately they were successful in attracting third parties to come in and lease stuff instead of Disney owning things. And there are a handful of things today in Disney Springs that Disney owns, like they couldn't get Shake Shack, so they made their own burger place, but they were able to bring in, the pizza place, from outside. So it was really probably a shift of like, let's try to bring in as many third parties to run stuff as possible and make it super attractive to them. And that just threw the plans out the window.
And the focus changed a bit because they did lean into this high end. It's designed like an outlet mall, but it's not an outlet mall. It's more a higher end, which is most of the retail there, or boutique retail, like the Cookie Place.
Right.
And again, I go back to the European and South American tourists come and they spend ungodly amounts of money on merchandise. So you walk down there, you're like, how do these places stay open? And that's how, they're paying the retail rates. And while malls are closing around the country, I live 20 minutes away from King of Prussia Mall, which is, I think, the second biggest mall in the country right now. And they come from all over, like when they visit Philadelphia, when they're in the tours, they come out here and they just shop. They just shop. They hit those malls and hit those shopping outlets and buy things like jeans and stuff like that that are a lot cheaper here than buying them in Europe or buying them in South America. So because I always used to see some of those higher end stores in the old Disney West Side, and I was like, how are these things open? Who are all these people buying $200 sunglasses every day?
It's amazing, but it's like every mall these days too. All that stuff is just like, who buys this? I wonder who buys it now with Amazon delivering stuff, and it's just, I don't know. Some people. Just love the
my niece ran into Kim Kardashian once at the King of Prussia Mall, so I know who. Like, there's a class of shopper that goes there and consumer, but it can't be duplicated on a mass scale. They're destination places, and that's one of them. And obviously, Disney Springs has become that because there's just we talk about it ad nauseum, but there's just a crush of people there at all times. It opens at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's crowded. You're there at 10 o'clock at night when everything closes, it's crowded.
It gets worse.
Yeah, and it's still heads over tails so much better than what it was set up before.
Yeah,
it was so tiny before that whole thing, all the walkways. It's like,
but they still have their challenges. It's just
uncomfortable.
They still have their really, where things get really, really tight. You over by Paddlefish, and then you've got over by the movie studio where those things are overhead.
Yeah.
That guy in the red leather jacket's always standing. It's crazy over there.
And they took one row of shops and made it two.
Yeah.
There's two streets running alongside each other.
Yeah.
And it can get I still get lost down there. Like, I'm like, where are you? Like, what?
Now, the other thing too, which I've found just kind of looking here, it seemed like Hyperion Wharf was just going to be for Pleasure Island. Like, they weren't going to expand like they did the Springs concept. It looks more like you can see the skyline, just looks like a refurbed version of what you'd see from, the old, but
That would make sense because West Side was still relatively newish at that point. So they probably weren't predicting having to redo that.
They didn't touch,
and then trying to tie it all into a big story.
They didn't touch a ton at West Side with Disney Springs. I mean, they threw up those old looking train tracks up on the sky, Skyline Way, whatever that is, and then
right. They rip down the coconut that was outside of Gloria Estefan's restaurant, or is that still there?
I don't know which one is which with those restaurants.
It's so funny because I look at the list sometimes. I'm like, I have not eaten at more of these restaurants than I've eaten at, just over the years, because I love the Boathouse. And there's a Jock Lindsay's. There's a few of them there that I really enjoy. And so I tend to, anytime we're going down, let's go there. I've eaten at T-Rex. I've eaten at Rainforest Cafe, House of Blues, Raglan Road.
I'm guessing you haven't eaten at
No, because we have wonderful steakhouses here. And that's the other thing. That steakhouse there, I think there's in there. Doesn't it blare music inside? I have a recollection that it's like
I think that
which is not not my environment to eat a $90 steak. Like I'm
it
much
is funny
more.
though.
But that's where you get your EVOO because they've left all the vowels out for so.
I'm more of a chicken man myself.
I like that walking that there though. The Jock Lindsay's, the Boathouse, he's kind of like that little hill.
Yeah, I love that. I love that area.
Yeah, I remember that you just kind of squint. You kind of can remember the memory of Pleasure Island walking through there. That's the clubs
definitely.
on the right and the left, and
I still going by Muramoto. I still think of mannequins because the building's somewhat intact.
Yep. Yeah, it's weird. It's just like an odd now it's just part of the shopping experience and dining experience.
Right. So I guess I will say those of you out here who are listening, thank you for bearing with me through 4 episodes of this. If you have fond memories of Pleasure Island, please write us. Todd, what's the phone number where people can call?
970-71-RETRO. Leave a message.
Yeah. So if you have any good memories, please share them with us. We'll share those on the next episode. But I know for one, I love Pleasure Island. When it was going, it was a ton of fun, especially for me because I just happened to hit, where it opened just as I turned 21. So I was definitely like right in the pocket of the right age to experience that all the way through. And it was so different from what Disney had before. It was so un-Disney in a lot of ways because, now it sounds stupid saying like, oh, you could get an alcoholic beverage at Disney because you can do that everywhere today. And it's not a big deal. But at that time, it was very different to bring that Disney style entertainment into a bar environment, especially because bars at that time weren't that great everywhere else. And today, higher quality bars and
it changed the standard.
Entertainment is a little more prevalent.
I mean, you got themed drinks at every restaurant now, and that was a huge thing. I mean, I remember being 21 and being like, "Hey, we're going out. What do you want to drink?" I don't know. I don't know what to get, But like, you'd see a list of fun drinks at Pleasure Island. You're like, "Oh, look at that thing! It's a big, beach pail full of alcohol. I'll take that because it looks fun." It's just that, that sort of stuff was like unique to it. I liked that aspect of, again, that looks like a fun place to go. Let me go into that one. Okay, I'm good there. And like, we had a little version of that at Akron in downtown. And I mean, one place was a martini bar, another place was a country western. Then you had a standard bar. Then you had a whatever. It just was like a fun way to make your night just not, I'm just going to sit at a towny bar all night. You kind of could get up and move and do stuff. And I dug that a lot at Disney.
I mean. One of the repeated stories at the time, too, was unofficially, when you have young people drinking all night in these club atmospheres and then they let out at midnight or 1 o'clock or whatever. Well, sometimes the party starts earlier and, fights would happen in the parking lot and, the police would have to roll up from time to time and that wasn't exactly a great look for people waiting for their bus back to the, Port Orleans Resort or whatever to, watch 2 guys fighting in the parking lot outside, downtown Disney. And I just think that they, again, at late 80s, Disney felt the need to compete with everybody. So, we've talked before how about Boardwalk and Baseball and Rosie O'Grady's and, Eisner any place where they were losing money, where people were leaving property to go spend their evening somewhere, they wanted to try to capture that market. And Pleasure Island was their attempt to do that. And once you've captured the market, once the market changes, and Universal did build City Walk and a million other places filled in between with alternatives where you could go and enjoy a night out and be off property, it became less of a thing. And there were cast member discounts one night a week, right? 1 or 2 nights a week there was cast member night, and that that was a big thing for Pleasure Island. All the college program kids and international cast and the younger cast members would go, and that could be their night out there for a cheap night out. I think they got free admission, if I remember correctly. It was 1 or 2 nights a week where they got they didn't pay the cover charge. And
right. Now I think what's also interesting, at some point City Walk also imploded because all those clubs were popular and then all of a sudden they weren't. And the place that's the Red Coconut Club now, that was the Coconut Club, that just closed down. A number of those things just kind of deadened out into the mid 2000s, late 2000s. So I think there was an overall just getting tired of that.
And again, I you're hypothesizing here, but we've all seen the shift in population around there, where there were more and more people moving in to live there permanently, to make their homes in the area, because they wanted to be near the theme parks, both Disney and Universal and SeaWorld and Busch Gardens and everything that's in between. And you have a tendency, once you're exposed to those things all the time, to want something different. And that probably shifted some of the clientele away from City Walk and away from Pleasure Island. And I know we see our frequent visitors and locals over there that there's, there's a bunch of different tiki bars now that are off property, and there's the Christmas themed bar, the year round Christmas themed. I see these things just from people I know that are there frequently, that are visiting these places with locals, and your desire to let's go drink at downtown Disney is, I think, kind of. It outgrew itself. Is there another word for it?
Well, there's maybe 2 other things too. I noticed sort of starting in the 2000s that who are now the millennials definitely got a lot more interested in locally owned things. Yep. You would see people go into smaller shops and have relationships with the shop owners.
The TGI Friday, getting hammered on a strawberry margarita wasn't a thing anymore.
Right. And where our generation was, we were the mall rats. It's like we loved the chain stores that were there. This group was the opposite of that. They frequented the smaller places.
Well,
and that in combination perhaps with the rise of craft cocktails and like better quality stuff locally, like really could have changed.
And I think there's 2 other things at play here. The drop off in quality in the Disney or homogenized chain play. We always make the joke now. You go to any Disney restaurant and they hand you the same. It looks unique. They hand you a bar menu, but they're literally the same bar menu at every single restaurant that you go to, except there might be 1 or 2 things on there that are different for that particular. We just had dinner 2 weeks ago at Boatwright's at the Port Orleans Riverside, and they handed me the bar menu, and I just started laughing because I'm like, I have seen this bar menu for 15 years now with the magical star cocktail and this and that.
I guess there's a Captain Morgan something.
The Captain's Mai Tai, like presented different ways, with photos, some with that, and this one was, in theme with the restaurant, but it's the exact same menu. And they got expensive. That's the other thing. Like, it became expensive to drink on property, and you could start to go off and property and eat and drink for a lot less money. So I think those things all kind of conspired to, there's no one thing.
And also too, I think the whole start of the speakeasy type thing and craft cocktails and other things has also changed the way that people are sitting. Like, look at Jock Lindsay's, right? That's a place to sit and have an appetizer and drink at the bar.
It's great.
But it's not the rush here. This guy in a white lab coat is going to give you a test tube shooter. You know what I mean? You want that, you go down to Cancun. You know what I mean?
See, I think it all goes back to Big Bad Voodoo Daddy with Zoot Suit Riot and starting that whole like brief 40s club renaissance where people, and the Sex and the City ladies with their Cosmopolitans. And so you had people starting to get into cocktail bars and it just like there was like a drastic
just
left or right hand
turn
to
changed a little.
Yeah. So, but it happened quick. Like it happened faster than they could adapt to. And now you have, and celebrity chefs became a thing very fast. So you wanted to really slap a celebrity chef on everything.
One of the things I do every time I'm at Disney Springs, my wife will go into the Lilly Pulitzer store, look around, and right outside there is a bar cart. And I sit there and I get a drink. And
I have walked by that bar cart and said,
every time,
who gets a drink here? And now I know.
Every time.
JT.
So go back to, they needed a whole island to have that set up. Well, now they have shopping and they have the bar cart there and they're selling the same drink. It's overpriced now and all that, but they didn't need a whole themed restaurant and bar to sell me that drink. They can do it right there at noon on a Sunday and that's it.
Bottoms up.
Yep.
Can I buy this drink? You buy whatever you want, honey.
That's pretty much it.
Give me another.
If you ever see me sitting at that fountain, you know why I'm sitting there. I'm just waiting.
Sitting there. It's a $300 stop.
Me and Andrew. Just
All right, Todd, you can wrap it up.
Well, Hal, thank you very much for putting this together. I hope everybody listening enjoyed. I know I did. It brings back a lot of memories. I remember I think we talked about in the previous episode, one of my fondest memories ever of Pleasure Island was playing the jumping frog game with the hammer over in that was over by the beach club years ago. So that was always a hoot. But thank you, Hal, for putting this together. We have some shirts to celebrate this. Anything you're going to put out there?
Yeah, we have some, and we're going to make. I don't have any ideas right at this particular moment. I'm still wrapping up our Universal ones from the last time. Thank you for the folks that have bought those. But yeah, I'll put my thinking cap on, and we'll do some tributes for the later stages of Pleasure Island.
Designs. So excellent.
I'm going to put a plug in for our next episode, and we'll promote this on social media as it draws closer to. But our next episode is going to be about computers at Walt Disney World. And that sounds like a broad topic because it is. But we're going to cover a lot of areas, not in total. But if you were an employee there, a cast member, and you remember when computers were introduced to your department, because we're going to talk about some of the computerization that opened the resort. We're going to talk about areas where they added computers over time. Things that were done manually, like hotels, reservations, and things like that. But we're also going to talk about computers being integrated into the attractions. And a big one will be places where computers were displayed in the parks or where you saw them. Hal has talked to us before, and we'll make him tell us again about the computers he got to use in the Centurium. And, there's a big, Epcot opened up a whole new world where people had an opportunity to toy around with computers. And we'll also touch on the Innoventions redo in 94, 95, 96, and all of the computer companies that came in and displayed their wares. So if you have a memory, something to offer, something that you want to mention, you can call us and leave a message at 978-71-RETRO, or you can email us at podcast@retrowdw.com, or you can send us a message through any of our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So
may have some general computer fun with this too, and Hal is going to tell us all about the Atari 5200 and how many hours and how many. Did you have to go to physical therapy for your wrist from playing that machine up there?
Oh no! To me, there's so many much more interesting.
Yeah, I mean the teacher center had different platforms and software on display and things. There's a lot to cover there. So
Smart One, computer coaster, everything is great stuff.
So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that.
We've got the laser disc from that gentleman's all the commercials he did. So we've got the computer coaster and the best quality we could probably get from his laser disc. It's not the whole thing with the beaver. Say, Shani. But it is the riding of the coaster, which is great. So, well, gentlemen, thank you very much as always for putting this together and joining us together this evening. So, we will be back next month with another episode. TBD. Oh no, we just talked about computers.
What am I saying? Announce what it is.
Yeah, what am I doing?
We'll be back with a movie night somewhere in there, TBD.
I've got a box of film that's got to be sent out. We've got some great clips, Brian, that you sent, and we're talking to somebody, too, who's got some interesting 35 millimeter. So, but as always, look for us on your favorite iTunes or favorite podcasting app. Give us a shout-out and a review there if you can. As always, if you have any questions, email us at podcast@retrowdw.com. And again, if you want any of our t-shirts, merchandise, anything you would like to do to help keep us on the air, retrowdw.com/support us. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next month. With that, Brian, take us out.
Follow the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society on Twitter and Instagram at LBV History, and on the web at lbvhistory.org. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at retrowdw.com, and on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at RetroWDW. And follow our hosts, Todd McCartney, on Twitter at WDWMS, Hal Bowers on Twitter and Instagram at GoAwayGreen, JT Cougar on Twitter at LS1JT, and on YouTube at Rubber City Motoring, and on the web at rubbercitymotoring.com. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Brian P. Miles. Retro Disney World is the monthly podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society, a nonpartisan, nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 organization, and is not affiliated in any way with the Walt Disney Corporation or any of its subsidiary or affiliated entities.